If everybody could manage their own mute button throughout this so that we can control background noise. Let me welcome everyone here today. My name is Amber Johnson. I'll introduce myself more in a second, but I just want to say it's great to have you here. This is the first time we've done a session on how to prepare for your PhD, and we're honored that you've decided to come hear about it, and we hope that you've brought some questions as well. I know that we are expecting several people to join us, and even more have requested that we send a recording of this video. So I think that this is a topic that is on people's minds. We're wondering if you're going to undertake this challenge of doing a PhD program after you've been out of school for maybe a decade, maybe multiple decades, how can you really get ready to do it? And that's what we want to cover today. And in particular, I want to state up front that this is different than some of our other online sessions we host. We regularly host an online information session about the PhD program. In that, we go deep on the curriculum and the format and the assignments and the cohort members and the scholars who come to teach in our program. We'll touch on that lightly today, but really the purpose of today's session is to talk about how you can prepare yourself to be involved in a PhD program. So it'll have a little bit of a different flavor. And again, you know, our housekeeping note for you is if you can just manage mute button, keep yourself on mute. We will open it up for questions at various points throughout the next 45 minutes or so, but it would help us if you could help us cut down on the background noise by using the mute button yourself. So let me just tell you a little bit about what you expect from this session. In just a minute, Jim Ludema, the director of our program, and I will give you a little bit of introduction to who's on the call. And then we'll spend just a few minutes making sure we all have a baseline knowledge about the program itself, the PhD program in values-driven leadership. From there, we're really going to focus on 3 different ways you can prepare yourself. How you can prepare yourself academically to be ready to re-enter the classroom, how you can prepare yourself in terms of the expectations on your time, and then finally, how you can prepare yourself in terms of technology, making sure that you have the resources and are ready to learn using technology. At the end of today's session, we'll talk about some additional learning opportunities so that you, over the course of the next year, can learn more about the program to discover if it's a good fit for you and if you might want to apply. And then we'll talk about how you can go about doing that. And throughout the program, there'll be a couple of different points where we pause to let you ask questions. Let me just state now that we will open up the phone lines. You can ask during those times if you have a question. If you are in a spot where you can't necessarily voice your question or you'd rather send it privately, you can use the Webex Chat function to do that. So there's an option that says chat. You just pull that function, where it says send to, you say Amber Johnson, type in your question, it'll come straight to me, and I'll make sure to ask it at some point during the next 45 minutes or so. So with that, let me just give you a very brief introduction to myself and then turn it over to Jim. My name is Amber Johnson, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Benedictine University's Center for Values-Driven Leadership. In that role, I've worked with a lot of you actually on what it might be like to enter the PhD program, and I hope you've also engaged with some of our other thought leadership work at our Forbes.com column, or maybe at one of the conferences we've been a part of. In addition to working for the center, also a student in the program. I am in the middle of my 3rd year, which means that I've finished my coursework in the program and I'm working on my dissertation. And my dissertation research looks at what it takes to make a successful global change project. So when you're leading change in a big organization at a global scale, how can you make sure that's successful? It's been a great ride so far, and I'm happy to tell you more and more about that anytime. But we want to get to the focus of today, which is how you can prepare to do your own research. And so, Jim, why don't you just say a few words about who you are, and then we'll dig into some information about the program itself.
Hello. We're glad you could join us today. I'm Jim Ludema. I'm the director of the Center for Values-Driven Leadership at Benedictine University, and also director of the PhD program in Values-Driven Leadership. I am married, have 3 kids. They're all grown and have kids of their own, so I'm a grandfather. Also love to cycle as a hobby. Today, as Amber said, we're going to talk about how to prepare for the PhD program. And so I don't want to spend too much time on the basics of the program, but let me just make a few general remarks about it. First, I want to say it's just a one-of-a-kind program designed for senior executives who want to change the world through values-driven leadership. And we're really proud to say that in 2017 and 2018, our doctoral program was named the #1 doctoral program in leadership in the US by HR.com. And we're pretty sure that we would have won it again this year in 2019, but they stopped giving that award. And so it wasn't possible. But it's a great program. It's one of a kind. It's unique and designed specifically for senior leaders who are wanting to leverage business to do positive things in the world. One of the things that's unique about the program is that it's a 3-year program. It's specifically designed, as I said, for senior executives. And so in the first 2 years of the program, you're doing coursework and you're in the classroom once a month with a bunch of other senior executives working on their PhDs or DBAs, with visiting distinguished scholars that we bring in from all of the top universities around the country and around the world, and with our own faculty, just digging into ideas and really creating new knowledge in that context. And then in the 3rd year is when you work on your own dissertation. In the first couple of years, you're beginning to work on the dissertation, but it's really in the 3rd year that you dig in deeply. And as Amber said, it's a great ride. She's currently doing her dissertation on leading global change projects and what are the success factors in leading global change projects across cultures, across time zones, across geographies, and how do you really make that work? A very exciting piece of work that she is doing. Just one of many. I'm currently working with another student who is a chief diversity officer and is working on strategies for advancing diversity and inclusion in large corporations. A variety of different dissertations that people work on. The curriculum itself also is unique, and we focus on 4 areas of study. And the first is leadership at multiple levels: self, others, organization, and society. And we also look at strategic change. How do you change organizations and institutions? What are the theories and the practices underlying that area? Global impact. How do we have a positive global impact through the work that we do? And we look into things like corporate social responsibility and sustainability in those courses. And then, of course, we have our research methods courses where you learn how to do quantitative and qualitative and mixed methods research, so that prepares you for doing your own dissertation. And, you know, it's a lot of people wonder, you know, how can I, as a working exec with lots of responsibilities, maybe also many family responsibilities, boards and so on and so forth, accomplish a program like this and get my PhD in 3 years? And we want to talk a little bit more about that. We created this content, we surveyed all of our current students to get their advice. So you'll hear a few of their quotes peppered throughout what we present today. And, you know, so then the ideas that you hear are ideas that came from them. But if you have specific questions, we'll pause after each section so that you can ask your questions and we can answer them, so that you get everything you need as a part of this webinar. Amber, let me turn it over to you for the next step.
Terrific. Well, our first sort of category to look at is how to prepare academically. And I actually want to start this by talking about how we prepare you. So things that happen once you're in the program to help you make that transition to be a scholar practitioner. In my case, it had been 20 years since I finished my master's degree, between the time I finished my master's degree and then started the doctoral program. And, you know, I was wondering, has my mind grown rusty? Am I really ready to step into this? Some of our doctoral students, it's been even longer, 3 or 4 decades even. And I don't think I'm the only one who has that feeling of, am I really academically prepared, and can I make that transition? So if you're wondering the same thing, we want you to know that this is a program that helps you with that process. And we're very student-centric, which means that we're committed to helping you become a scholar practitioner, and we'll ease you into it. But there are several things we do specifically that help you with that process. The first one is from very early in the program, you're assigned a writing coach. Our coach that we use is Dr. Joanna Beth Tweedy, who's actually a graduate of one of our first cohorts and a professor of English literature. And she is an exceptional coach. So she'll read several of your articles or several of your papers throughout the program. And from very early on, help you identify the places where you have real strengths as a writer. Maybe you're great with vivid imagery, or maybe you're very good at drawing in outside resources. But she'll also help you identify opportunities for growth so that you can tackle the repetitive grammar mistakes that you make early, so that you can start to learn APA style, which is the citation process that the university uses, so that you can figure out how to make clear arguments in your reading or in your writing. And she'll advise you in that process one-on-one in a very custom way. And it's tremendous for someone who is making this transition, who maybe hasn't been writing academically in decades. She'll help you make that easily. The second thing we do to prepare you is we send you to conferences. So in the first year of our program, you go to the Academy of Management, which is the leading conference for management scholars. And in the second year, you go to the International Leadership Association, which is the leading conference for leadership scholars. And what that does is it throws you into the deep end. It gets you thinking and meeting some of the world's best scholars in these areas. You begin to pick up on the pattern, how research is done, how ideas go from being just thoughts to actual valid, tested, evidence-based theory. And you get to interact and play out ideas in the presence of these other scholars. Plus, it's just a lot of fun to travel with your classmates. And so that's one of the ways that we really help prepare you and ease you into the process. Third, we really have work that builds over time. So we don't expect you to come in on day one and be ready to write a 100-page academically rigorous paper. That will happen at various points throughout the program, but you're going to work towards that. And so our faculty are exceptionally good at working with adult learners. Jim has been teaching executive students for over 20 years. We know he knows how to help you make that transition, as do our other faculty members. They know it's an adjustment. They're going to help you build your capacity. And starting in year one, get you ready progressively to work on your dissertation so that by the end of year 3, you've completed it. And we actually have a video about that process, about how our coursework progressively builds towards your dissertation and prepares you for it. So we thought we just might play that video now. And this is actually the first time we've tried playing this video in a conference meeting or in a video conference like this. So this is a technology opportunity. You'll have to let me know if it goes okay or if you have problems hearing it. But let me go ahead and just play that little 3-minute video for you now.
Most of us have a lot of ideas we're interested in pursuing. Turning those ideas into a dissertation can be one of the most exciting things about becoming a doctoral student. In the PhD and DBA program in Values-Driven Leadership, we'll help you take your idea all the way through the dissertation process. Let me share how it's done. In your first year, we expose you to a broad range of topics and research methodology. You can get an understanding of the field. Then, we ask you to attend the leading academic conference in the field, the Academy of Management. You'll go to sessions that touch on your topic of interest, and you'll meet the top scholars who are studying the subject. Later that year, you complete your first qualifying paper, Qual 1. This gives you broad exposure to the premier journals. By reading lots of articles, you can get a good idea for how research is conducted and what questions are being asked. As you move into your second year, you begin sharing short presentations about your ideas with the faculty. Your ideas become refined as you talk to one another and as you complete the second qualifying paper, Qual 2, which is a literature review of the topic you find most interesting. Completing the paper will give you a clear idea of where you might be able to contribute. Toward the end of your second year, you'll select a dissertation chair and write a dissertation proposal to formulate your research question and establish why the topic is worth your time. Once your proposal is accepted, you'll be ready to get started. With guidance from your dissertation chair, you'll begin collecting original research early in the third year of the program. This might be through interviews, surveys, archival data, observation, or all of the above. Then you'll analyze your research to find new patterns and ideas. Essentially, as a doctoral student, you become a creator of new knowledge. You can definitely expect several rounds of revisions with your dissertation chair and committee, but by the spring of your final year, you'll be ready to defend your research. Your ideas have become a dissertation, and have become a doctor.
All right, so we hope that that gives you some assurance that this dissertation process, while challenging, is something that you can progressively work towards and honestly complete in 3 years, as I plan to do myself.
Good. Amber was saying, some additional ways that you can prepare for the, coming into the doctoral program. And there are really 4 that I'd like to mention. The first is to start writing now. For a lot of us who may be coming back into the education scene, writing doesn't necessarily come easy. And so it's important to start, flexing that muscle or exercising that muscle. So anything, writing reports at work or summaries of a novel you've read or blog posts or, anything that gets you putting ideas down on paper will be beneficial as you come into the doctoral program. And you may even want to hire an editor or get somebody whom you know that's a really good writer or editor and have them look at your work and give you any suggestions to help improve your writing capacity coming into the program. As Amber mentioned, we do have a writing coach once you're in the program that helps you get up to speed on academic writing, but writing before you come in is also a good idea. Another one is to get familiar with journal articles, because in a doctoral program we don't read many books that you might find on the shelves in an airport bookstore. We don't read many textbooks the way you would in a master's program or an undergrad program. We read almost exclusively journal articles from the top journals in the fields of leadership and organizational change and corporate responsibility and global change and so on. And so getting familiar with journal articles and how to read journal articles and how to sift through them, because a lot of them are, frankly, kind of dense. This is the original research in these fields. As you get into the doctoral program, you'll learn to love those journals, and they're so good in terms of knowledge and depth and theoretical foundations and concepts of the field. You'll really learn to love them and turn to them as a resource for the program. You may want to start reading them to just get a feel for what they're like. A couple of very specific journals that I would recommend are the Leadership Quarterly. It's the leading leadership journal in the world. Another one is the Journal of Applied Behavioral Science, which is the leading organizational change journal out there. And then the Academy of Management journals. There's the Academy of Management Journal, the Academy of Management Review, the Academy of Management Discoveries, the Academy of Management Insights. There's a whole series of journals at the Academy of Management, and they're very good journals. You may also want to go to YouTube and find a video about how to read journal articles, because there are strategies for reading them and getting the gist of them without having to wade through, for example, all of the dense statistics. And so that will help you in terms of getting into the program and the speed with which you can read the articles and giving you a jump start. The third thing is to do the same with statistics if you are so inclined. Go to YouTube or Khan Academy, that's Khan Academy online, and go do a review of basic statistics, because a lot of the articles that you'll read in the doctoral program do have statistics in them, and you'll want some basic understanding of how to read those. Finally, we have a few books that we can recommend for you to read in advance. I am not sure if Amber can hear me now, but I'll maybe text her to advance the slide to the books. It worked. Here are the books that we would recommend. Number one is Teaming by Amy Edmondson. Continuous Change by Bill Pasmore. Positive Leadership by Kim Cameron. Northhouse's textbook on leadership. I said that we don't read many textbooks in the program, but Northhouse's is one, and it's sort of like a broad survey of the entire field of leadership. Great book, book in the world. And then you can see the link to dissertations from our program, which make for great reading and also give you an understanding of what you'll be shooting towards.
Jim, I don't know if you can hear me, but I have audio back.
Yeah, great. So I just finished the slides on the slide on the books.
Terrific. Well, why don't we pause then? Sorry, everybody, for that technology snafu there, but let's pause for a second and just see if anybody has questions about preparing academically. If you do, you can either take yourself off mute and speak up, and we'll listen for you, or it may just be easiest to use the chat function and type in your question as well. We'll pause for a second. I know we've got a couple of questions that came in separately, and so we'll ask those as well. Jim, why don't we go ahead and ask? Can you say a little more about the qualifying papers that you were mentioned in the video?
Yeah, the qualifying papers. In the first year of the program, you do the first qualifying paper, which is called Qual 1, and in the second year of the program, you do the second qualifying paper, which is called Qual 2. Typically, in doctoral programs, after your 2 years of coursework or 3 years of coursework, you'll sit for qualifying exams, where usually the exams are a full day or maybe 2 full days. You have to respond to questions about all of the topics that you learned in the 2 or 3 years of coursework. It's a very high anxiety kind of activity. It requires you to study in depth a lot of stuff that you may not be interested in or may not need. And so what we've done is we've created these qualifying papers. And so the way that works is so that you're learning, qualifying yourself and learning about the field incrementally as you go in the program, and it helps you make progress towards your dissertation rather than waiting until after the 2 or 3 years of coursework. The first qualifying paper is a broad review of 15 of the top journals in the fields of leadership, strategic change, and global impact. And we ask you to go back 3 years and look at all of the articles that have been written in those journals. Who are the authors? What are the topics? What are the methods they use? What are the most interesting findings? And then to sort of like, based on that sort of survey of the field, begin to locate yourself in areas of interest to you. And it's a big assignment. Often the papers will be, 50, 60, 70, 80 pages long, because it's a lot of review of different journals and different articles. Love it, because it socializes them into the field. It connects them with the big thinkers and with the big ideas. And then it gives them a jump start on thinking about their dissertation. The second qualifying paper in year 2, you do a deep dive into a topic that you're interested in, and that usually becomes the literature review for your dissertation. So Amber, in her second year, she was doing her Qual 2. She did her literature review in the area of global leadership and organizational change and global change, because that's what her dissertation is on. So she got really immersed in the literature there, wrote that up, and now that has become the second chapter of her dissertation, her literature review. So that's the purpose of those 2 qualifying papers, is to socialize you into the field, get you up to speed on the hot topics, get you connected with topics that you're interested in, and then help you write that literature review for your dissertation.
Great, thank you. And then one more question that came in, Jim. What percentage of DBA students, or just students in general, drop out before finishing or never graduate? So what's the finish rate in the program?
Yeah, I think the finish rate, I don't know an exact percentage, but I think it's probably about 85 to 90%. Typically what we see is if we bring in a cohort of, say, 25 students, right away in the first month or so, 3 of them drop out on average. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's none, sometimes they see the workload is too much, or they get a job change, or change of heart or whatever the case may be. And so typically that's what we'll see. Then pretty much all of the students who stay in after those first couple of months make it through the 2 years of coursework. And when it comes to the dissertation, I think that perhaps 1 or 2 per cohort don't finish the dissertation. In cohort 1, I think it was 3 people. In cohort 2, well, maybe about 3 people per cohort. And in cohort 3, I think it's fewer. So I think, long story short, we typically have about 3 folks drop out early in the program, and we typically have about 3 folks who don't finish the dissertation out of a cohort of 25.
And what happens if you don't, if you can't finish in 3 years?
Finish in 3 years, you can continue into a 4th, 5th, and 6th year. You've got 6 years to complete the dissertation. Full tuition in the first 3 years, and in the 4th, 5th, and 6th year, if you haven't finished, you pay half tuition for those years.
Terrific. All right, those are the questions that were submitted. Let me just pause to make sure nobody on the phone has a question.
One other thing about that, Amber, another feature of the program is that after you're done with the 2 years of coursework, you can receive a master's degree in values-driven leadership. All you have to do is apply for it because you've done the coursework. And so, for the students who don't finish their dissertation, those 2 or 3 in each cohort, they do still achieve a master's, just not the PhD or DBA.
Great point. All right, so we talked about preparing academically. Let's talk a little now about preparing your time. And this is usually where actually people have the most questions. Certainly you can start sending those questions with the chat box now. But most of us already feel like we don't have enough hours in the day as it is. And so how can you keep a full-time job, maybe have a family, be engaged in your community, have anything of a social life, and do a PhD as well? And that's a very good question. Let me tell you that each year we poll our students and ask how many hours they're spending on average each week in the program. And people tell us the range is usually 15 to 20 hours a week. Some weeks it's less, some weeks it's more. But 15 or so is a pretty good average. And so you may feel like, where can I find those 15 hours? What we find our students doing and what our students have recommended is, first of all, by making your commitment public to your community, to your family, like these adorable children that are children of one of our students right now, to your partner, to your boss. Just let them know that this is a commitment and let them know what it's going to require of you and what you need to ask of them as a result. Other people recommend sitting down with your boss and saying, for this number of years, is it okay if I work less overtime? May I do more delegation of projects than I have in the past? Sitting down with your partner and asking, can you take over these chores at home? Or how can I still support you and have the extra time to do this? Other people talk about maybe even writing a purpose statement for why you're doing the program so that your family understands what's driving you, the meaningful reason that you're investing so much of your time in this project. The other thing people recommend is reducing your commitments. And so I know many of us, myself included, have rotated off boards and reduced some of our social commitments. I've cut back on being involved in committee work at my church. I've taken on fewer responsibilities at my children's school, those sorts of things, to free up some time that I might have otherwise given elsewhere. And then we've also looked to reduce commitments around the house. So several students mentioned that they use Instacart for shopping and that they hired a neighborhood kid to mow their yard. Whatever it is, some of those little responsibilities that are always on your plate can be handed off to others, and that can help you make time. People also note that it's important to block time in advance. And so when you're accepted into the program, we give you the calendar for the next 2 years of classes, and getting those on the calendar and then building your work commitments around that can be really helpful. And people also remind us, our students remind us to block in time for vacations with your family so that you do have some dedicated focused time on them and they don't feel left in the midst. And then finally, people recommend working on new time management skills. And so if you're the sort of person who always struggles with getting projects done on time, who's working pretty last minute, this could become a stressful environment for you. And there's things you could work on now to build your time management capacity. There are some great books about this. And the two that I personally recommend are Deep Work by Cal Newport and Essentialism by Greg McCowan. Those are great books on how to prioritize your time and your projects and really focus on the work that you're doing. And so definitely that's building those good habits now is a definite recommendation. All right, so that's how to prepare your time. Let's just take a second and pause for any questions. You can ask them through the chat box, or you can open up your phone line and talk to us if you'd like to ask a question live. And maybe while we're waiting for questions to come in, Jim, a question for you. In between classes, so classes are held once a month on weekends, but in between classes, from Sunday night when you finish class until a month later when you come back on Friday night, what are the time commitments? Do you have to be anywhere online at any certain time or anything like that?
No, there's no, typically, no, I don't think at all there's any synchronous learning. And so in between classes, we'll post a bunch of articles for you to read for the next weekend, sometimes some assignments. You know, you may do an assessment like the Strengths Finder or the, you know, Hogan instrument or whatever, and that's, you know, done online. And there may be, there's not a lot of it, but there's some, you know, teamwork or group work where you need to collaborate with some colleagues in between the two class weekends. But, you know, all of that can just be done via email, via conference call, whatever you want to do. So there's no requirement to be online or to be anywhere at any particular time in between the two class weekends. A lot of reading to do and a lot of writing to do.
So that's the next question we're getting, which is, so then what are you doing with that time between your classes?
Yeah, that's it, right? So, I mean, let's say you're doing a course on global leadership. First weekend in cohorts past, my brother Rod, who is a professor at Georgetown University and the former chief economist of the US State Department, he comes in and talks about the global economy. So prior to the weekend with him, there are a bunch of articles that he has assigned for you to read and a couple of books to read, a couple of assignments to do before class so that you're well prepared and you understand the material before you show up on and are in dialogue with him. And many of those articles are articles that he's written. Then you do that weekend with him. Then in the second weekend of the global leadership course, global leadership guru Joyce Osland comes from San Jose State University, and she'll assign a book and a bunch of articles for you to read. She'll also have you fill out an online assessment called the Global Competencies Inventory, and then, you know, to get your results on that and look through those results. So then again, you do that reading, and I think she has a short writing assignment as well to sort of connect you with some of the ideas in the readings, and then she comes to class and you spend the weekend with her in class, you know, eating lunch with her, going out for dinner with her and picking her brain and that kind of stuff. And then after that weekend, you're asked to write a paper that brings together the stuff that you got in the first weekend from my brother Rod on the global economy, and the second weekend from Joyce Osland and myself on you know, global leadership, and then to bring it all together and write a 20-page paper to sort of you know, talk about global leadership, how it's done, what are the competencies that are needed, where we should be taking global leadership in the future, and that kind of thing. So, you know, there's a lot of reading before the first weekend, a lot of reading and some assignments before the second weekend, and then a paper after the second weekend.
Great.
Typically.
Perfect. Good description. All right. Shall we move on and talk about how to prepare for technology?
You bet. So there are a few things that you're going to need in terms of technology. One is a laptop. And another one is a printer. Now, some people don't print much, like Amber. Others print a lot because they prefer to read on paper. I can guarantee you, you're not going to want to or be able to print all of the articles that you read in this program, but you may want to print some. And there are times when faculty or visiting scholars will ask you to bring handouts to class, as conversation starters or whatever. So you'll need a printer. A PDF reader. Some people really like, the editing capabilities too on a PDF reader so that they can make notes on a PDF. A backup system in the cloud, like Google Drive or Dropbox, because you do not want your hard drive to crash and to lose all of the work that you've done in the program. That has happened, and it is a tragedy when it does, and that anytime, but especially when you're working on your dissertation. So definitely need to back stuff up. You'll need access to email, and you'll need to think about what account you want to use for your school-related work. A lot of people don't want to use their work account for their school stuff because they want to keep them separate for whatever reason. And so they'll have a Gmail account or something that all of their school stuff goes to. When you become a student at Benedictine University, you also get a .edu account, and so you can use that one for your school work as well. I think that's all on that. And then in terms of the technology that we'll teach you in the program, see on the slide, we'll teach you how to use the online library. And this is a real gift of being a student or a faculty at the university. You have access to the online library, and the online library has data, thousands of databases that you can turn to get articles. You just access all of those articles online and download them, or however you want to do that. Then there's our learning management tool, which is D2L, and that's the place online where we post all of the assigned articles for a particular course, any assignments for that particular course, any videos we want you to watch, and so on. And it's all contained, as I was talking about the Leading in the Global Economy course. We have a course called Leading in the Global Economy. You click on that link, and all of the materials and everything you need, the slides for the lectures and all that will be on that learning, the D2L. Yeah, that's also where you submit your papers after you've written them to read. And then you'll definitely want to use a reference management software. So for example, when you're doing a course paper, or when you're reading articles for a particular course, you want to put those into that reference management software so that you can easily access them and pull them back up when you need them. And then also when you're writing a paper, you can just put those into the reference section of the paper, and then you'll use those for your Qual 1 paper, your Qual 2 paper, your dissertation. So keeping all of those references based like that is essential in a doctoral program. Faculty and staff are always there to help you with those things, and we've also got a great librarian dedicated to the College of Business at Benedictine University. His name is Kent Carrico, and he is an invaluable resource as well.
Yeah, Kent's been known to.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, Kent's been known to answer emails at midnight or text messages at midnight to help a student who's on a last-minute deadline really get unstuck. So he's great about that.
He's a real gift.
Yeah. So, Jim, a couple of questions on technology and going back to other topics as well. First, a real practical question. Are computers allowed in the classroom for note-taking, or is that something the faculty forbid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any kind of technology, tablets, computers, whatever students want to use, you bet.
Yeah,
and there are occasionally. A lot of times if you have a bunch of articles for class 2, you don't want to print them all off and bring them in hard copy, so you just have them on your laptop or your tablet.
Yeah, occasionally there's an interactive section in the course, in a classroom weekend, where they may say you're not going to have your computers for this because we want people sitting in a circle or whatever it is. But for the most part, and I loved taking notes online or on my computer, because then I could use the search function to find something I vaguely remembered but couldn't remember clearly. A related question, do people need the Microsoft Office suite?
I don't know. You tell me, Amber. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I would say you can get by without it for a lot of things, but we actually have a template, a Microsoft Word template we use for our papers, and that is a requirement for your dissertation. And I don't think it'll transfer into Google Docs or something like that. So you would need Microsoft Office. The good news is you get free access to it as a student. So yes, you need it, but you can get it for free if you apply and are accepted into the program. And then somebody is asking a question going back to our earlier topic. We mentioned the conferences that we go to, Jim, and one person is asking, would you recommend going to Academy of Management or ILA before entering the program, just to kind of familiarize yourself with leadership concepts and start getting prepared?
Absolutely. You know, the Academy of Management conference and the International Leadership Association conference are like candy shops. I mean, all of the top scholars are there. So many interesting papers are being presented, symposia are being presented. It is just a smorgasbord of ideas and people and theories, and they're both amazing. You know, the Academy of Management conference is about 10,000 people. It's fairly big. The International Leadership Association conference is about 2,000, 3,000, so it's a little smaller, but they're both just fantastic. Going to those, if you have the opportunity before going into the program, is that you get a feel for it. You can see what is the quality of the presentations. If I were going to present here, how would I need to do it? What would I need to do to prepare? Mm-hmm. Who are the people I want to hang out with? Am I really interested in the diversity and inclusion people, or the org change people, or the strategy people, or the, global leadership people? And so, yeah, it's a great experience, and I really recommend it. In the program, once you're in our program, in the first year, it's required for you to go to the Academy of Management conference, and in the second year, it's required for you to go to the International Leadership Association conference. If you've already been to those conferences, you'll be much better equipped when you go into them while you're in the program. We also have an international requirement in the program where you typically go to an international conference as well. And so to help you sort of get prepared for that as well.
Great. And we have an international student on the line who's asking a question about getting visas. And so I think I work with that more. Maybe I'll address it. I don't think we've ever had a problem with any of our international students getting a student visa and being able to participate in the program. I can't think of any problems with that. Can you, Jim?
No, and we have had many, and I cannot think of any issue with that. No.
Yeah, me neither. And, of course, the political environment in the United States and visas are a little bit different recently, but even recently, we've not had any challenges with it. And the university actually has an international student office that helps work out the visa details. In terms of preparing for your PhD, though, I would say if there are any international students listening today, I would recommend that you apply early, because that process does take time and it can't be resolved as quickly as a domestic student can, apply and get enrolled very quickly if they're accepted. But international students, there's more paperwork. And so definitely plan to start that process earlier. All right. Well, our current students that we polled had a couple of more pieces of advice we want to share with you really quickly, and these are just sort of the miscellaneous category. So as we wrap up, let me just share those. We said, what would you recommend? How would you prepare coming into the program? And one person gave this advice to be open, to be positive, and be prepared to learn and engage with others. The cohort nature of our program means that you really get to know the 20 or 25 people that you're in class with every weekend. And they're coming from all corners of the world, all parts of the U.S., from different industries, different backgrounds, different professional experiences, different worldviews. And that creates this incredible learning experience. It also means that occasionally it creates difficult moments as people try to express how they feel, and it stands in contrast to how you might consider a situation. So really coming in prepared and to be positive and to engage with others, and recognizing that there will be challenging moments, either with other people or just in the challenge of trying to get the work done and honor your commitments outside of the program as well. So coming in prepared for the expectation that you'll hit difficult moments is another way you can prepare yourself. And then someone said, and I love this, honor your accomplishments, but be willing to admit the oceans of ignorance we all carry. Isn't that a great expression, the oceans of ignorance we all carry? You know, I think most of the people in our program have been leaders for a while. They've been working in their fields for a while. They have a lot of expertise. And it maybe has been a while since they have walked into a room and felt unprepared or wondered if they were capable. And the doctoral program will remind you very quickly of how much you do not know. We try to make that a really friendly environment and a friendly process in our program, but there'll still be moments where you just need to confront what you don't yet know. And maybe that's even learning about yourself, because a lot of people find the program to be transformational in terms of your own leadership and your own worldview. And so walking in the door with some humility and some openness to the experience will definitely be required. And then less seriously, a few things that you can focus on in the coming months if you are considering applying for the program or another doctoral program is to make physical space for your school materials. I know I have a large shelf in my walk-in closet that's dedicated to the books that I got from the program. A lot of our students say establish good eating and exercise habits now, because it will be hard to keep those as you get busier with the program, and so get those habits built now. And then my big piece of advice to everybody is watch movies and read novels and take vacations and long walks with your family now, because you'll have less for those things in the future. We have just about 2 minutes. We can pause for some last questions. So if anybody has any last minute questions, things we haven't covered specifically about preparing for the program or just about the program themselves, go ahead and chat that to us. And you know, Jim, one question that's come in is a simple one. Is the program year round? Are there any breaks in those 3 years?
There are no breaks. It's year round. Yep. And, you know, of course, in the first 2 years of the program, you're doing coursework. And so then you're going year round. And then in the third year, you're still going year round, but you don't have to, you know, commute to Chicago or come into the university once a month. You can do your work from home, but it still is going to take that full year for you to get it done, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. It's like a marathon. It's Chicago Marathon weekend here in Chicago, and I find a lot of comparisons between the PhD program and the act of running a marathon, because you just keep going and you try very hard not to fall behind. In fact, that's some advice we always offer students, is just never fall behind.
I would just add to that, Amber, you know, there's no question that what you say is true, that it's like a 3-year marathon and you cannot fall behind. And you know, sometimes you're elated and sometimes it's grueling and sometimes it's so exciting and sometimes it's really tough, and all of those things happen. But during those 3 years, you really need to focus very heavily on the work in the program, because it requires a lot of commitment and a lot of work. That said, it's a 3-year program, where typically a PhD program is a 5 to 7 year program. And this is what you know, working executives have asked for, and this is what we've created. So yeah, it's a big effort. It's a full body embrace for 3 years, but then you're done in 3 years, and that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely, and we don't want to intimidate you, because, you know, as Jim was sharing earlier, you know, 85–90% of people graduate from the program. Most people who do that within the 3 years of the program. If they can do it, you can do it. We have absolute faith. Well, with that, Jim, let's just take a couple of seconds and share how people can learn a little more.
Definitely go to our website, and there you can find this page about the program, and there you can see an overview of the program, the curriculum. You can see all of our students and graduates and who they are and their bios. There's an FAQ document. You can see our faculty, distinguished scholars, and everything. So definitely go to that page. It's a very thorough website, and it's got all the information you need there. And then also feel free to reach out to Amber or me to answer any additional questions that you might have. Amber?
Yeah, and then we'd also encourage you to join us for one of our information sessions. So today was really focused on how to prepare for the program, but we have regular online sessions that go more deeply into how to just answering your questions about the program itself and the curriculum, the visiting scholars, what the work looks like. And so the next one of those that's scheduled is December 5th. It's online like this session. There'll be a March 27th session on campus, and that one will immediately, it follows a senior executive roundtable, which are these events we hold once or twice a year to bring the public in, along with a leading thinker on some area of values-driven leadership, just a world-class scholar. And then we spend the afternoon really deep diving into some incredible topic. And so our next one of those is scheduled for March 27th, and there'll be an information session about the program right after that. And you can RSVP for both of those at our website, cvdl.ben.edu/open house. And then just to give you kind of a quick overview of timelines for the program, we launch a new cohort every 2 years, and we just started one in April of 2019. So we actually won't start a new cohort until April of 2021. So that means you actually have a lot of time to do due diligence about the program. Then this coming April 2020, we'll start accepting applications for the new cohort, cohort 6. Those will be due by November 20th. We do interviews after the full application is received. Everybody will find out then who was admitted, and we will begin classes on April 9th, 2021 with our orientation weekend. So that's what you can expect. You've got a lot of time to do your research and prepare. Jim, any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. You know, the program is a remarkable program. It's filled with values-driven leaders who are changing the world through business. And we hope that you are one of those people and that you apply for the program and plan to join us. We'd love to have you. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.